Noah, Chickastickaduspotty. I'm Bambi Littlesun. I've lived and worked around here for a long time. I've seen evidence of the little people. They've taken my keys before when I've worked here. They have, definitely moved things, and things were not where they were supposed to be when no one else was in the building but me. Oh, sure. More, okay. I'm always so loud, too. I thought I'd been having a problem with that. But in both buildings that I've worked in Building 64 and Alvin Leading Fox. And when I was in Building 64, I knew the children were there. And I would be typing, especially in the morning if I got there before other people did, and I could feel them watching me, and at times I could feel them looking over my shoulder, like to see what I was working on. And when I would say anything, it would be gone. And it would be almost like I would be able to feel them breathing on the back of my neck, although they weren't there. But when I would say, "Noah," they'd be gone. Well, on the weekends, I had a little red ball that I would leave where I could roll around. During the week, I usually put it on a roll of tape, set sideways, and I just kept it there. But when it was weekends, I would leave it out. And I would let it just roll. It was always in a different place when I got back from the weekend than it was when I left on the Friday. It was just something I always just let them do. I just thought, I felt like I knew the kids were there, and I might as well give them something to play with. Well, I hadn't been in that building for a few years because I've been teaching in the other building. But I had gone back there after hours because I had something I had to do with another woman. She was white and apparently got very nervous about ghosts. I was so used to them being around. It didn't bother me. I knew they were there. They've always been there. But the kids, I guess, recognizing the fact that I had, been there and been gone, all of a sudden, I could hear this giggling, and I could hear a ball bouncing down the hall. Da-ding, da-ding, and laughing and everything. And the lady that was with me, she said, "What is that? We're in the building by ourselves." And I said, "No, we're not. The kids are here. They're always here." And I went back to what I was doing. But then she freaked out. She's like, we are alone in this building. You know that, right?" I said, "No, I know we're not alone in this building. I know the kids are here. And they've always been, always been good to me. They've always been nice to me. Maybe because I was always nice to them. But even when I went in the other building, I had more adult-like experiences. Like one day I'd been teaching over at the Osage Nation all day, and then I was teaching GED. And after that, I was walking up, and everybody left, and that was one of the few nights I wasn't taking somebody home. So the building is quiet, but I can hear people talking and banging around and cooking in the kitchen. And I'm like, I am so tired. I do not feel like this. I'm going to have to go tell them off. I'm going to have to tell them they're getting out of here. I got to lock up. I'm not dealing with this. I'm cranky. I'm tired. I'm packing the books up, and I go to open that door to where the kitchen is, and I realized it was locked. It was locked, and the lights were off. There was nobody in the building but me. But I could still hear them in there. But they weren't in there. There was no one in there. And I thought, well, maybe the building is, like maybe the echo is from another place in the building. But it wasn't. I walked all through the building. I was the only one in there. I've had them open doors for me. I've had them do different other things, through the years I have worked and lived here. And it never bothered me. I always had really positive experiences with them. I always just felt like they were there and I was there, and they were nice to me and I was always nice to them. I've never got freaked out by them. I wasn't sure why some people did, because, they're just living on a different plane than we are, so it didn't bother me. And I knew that they were having problems, and that's why they were still there. So I always hoped I was a comfort to them. But in my youth, my dad was in the Army, 38 years. So veterans are special to me. And I grew up an Army brat, born in an Army hospital. My dad got stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. If any of you know, that's the home of the Green Berets. My dad was stationed there 5.5 years. That's the longest I lived anywhere when I was growing up. Before we had moved there, 2 years before we moved there, we had heard that a Green Beret had killed his family, which is a very unusual kind of situation on an Army post. It happened on the Army post. At first, the military MPs were the ones that handled the investigation. Later on, it was turned into the civilian authorities. And when the civilian authorities, which to me was double jeopardy, I don't think they should have been able to do that, they arrested this man. His name was Jeffrey McDonald. He was a Green Beret doctor. Somebody having an issue over there. Anyway, my dad was moved there, and we lived there 5.5 years, longest I ever lived anywhere. I never lived anywhere more than 1.5 years to 2.5 years. Now, I have a picture. This is actual Spain shot. There's a couple of them out here if you guys want to look. Of the headlines when he killed his family. They said he killed his family. The civilian court finally convicted him, and he's in prison to this day. Now, when I was going to school, I went to school on the post. Anybody that's ever been an Army brat, they have school on the post. So I went to school on the post, and I made friends with a girl named April Wright. My last name Vogel, then Wright. She sat next to me. We were in alphabetical order. Now with her, she had a bigger family, and she lived on the opposite side of the housing area we lived in, which was called Ansville Acres. All the housing areas are named after generals. There was regular courts. And we had heard that murders had happened over in regular courts. I lived in Ansville Acres, so I never thought anything about it. But my friend invited me to her birthday party. Her birthday party was mostly outside. It was a barbecue. They had barbecue. I had bought April a present. She had asked me to please give her this present, because her mother bought her something different that she didn't really care for. It was some craft thing, and she wanted the thing that I had bought. So I brought it over there, put it in my bike, and I put it in my little basket, and I was pedaled clear over the other side of the housing area, and I went to her party. When I went to her party, I sat down, and I didn't notice she was in a duplex. In that housing area, we only had like 4 or 5 plans, housing plans. She lived in a duplex. The other side of her house was boarded up, which is very unusual if you've ever lived on an Army post or any place. They don't let that happen because everybody needs to have the houses. So if there's something wrong with them, the post engineers fix them. So you always have everybody moving in, moving out, moving in, moving out. And they're fixed in between. Well, for some reason, this house was boarded up, and I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it until I sat down and started to eat. And I started feeling like someone was standing behind me, which was freaking me out, because it's like there's nobody behind me. I looked around. I didn't see anybody behind me. And then again, I felt like someone was pressing up against me, like right up against my back. And then I was like, well, that's really, it's getting on my nerves. I'm trying to eat. And I just stopped eating because it's starting to bother me so much. I feel like I'm being watched. I feel like there's somebody behind me. And then I feel like somebody's trying to grab me. And yet there's nobody there. There's no person there. It's just me sitting there. Finally, I look over my other shoulder and realize that the other side of the house is boarded up. And I asked April, I said, why is that side of the house boarded up? They're never boarded up like that. And she said, oh, you noticed. I said, I noticed what? I said, there's some really bad feelings coming from that house. And she said, that's where that Green Beret killed his family. And I said, what? I said, no, that's in corrective report. She said, no, that's there. That's there. I should have told you. That was not very nice of me. I should have told you. sat and tried to just get over it. I tried to, participate in the party. But more and more, I started to feel like someone was stabbing me. They were pulling me back. I have asthma anyhow, so I started losing my breath. I started really freaking out, and April says, well, let's go inside. Maybe your asthma is just bothering you. Come on, we'll go inside. Well, the houses connect, they mirror each other. So when you go into the bedrooms, you're going closer to the other side, the other connected house. When I put my foot up to go down the hall, where she was wanting me to go to her room, I completely freaked out. I could not go. My breath was gone. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't breathe. I could hear this murmuring, na, 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 in my ears, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was just totally freaked out. I was scared. Finally, I looked at her and I said, I have to go. I'm going home. I can't do this. I can't do this. And I am just barely able to even say that to her. And her mother saw me. And I just looked at her, and my tearful eyes, I could barely get on my bike and drive home. When I got home, my mom said, my God, what happened to you? Did you have a fight with April? I said, no, Mom. I said, no, that's not what happened. And it took me several minutes to calm down and be able to tell her what had happened. And I said, Mom, that Green Beret that they thought killed his family. I said, he didn't kill his family. There were people in there, and they were chanting. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but there were people stabbing me. And in my body, I could feel this terror that this woman is feeling. She's scared, and these people are in her house, and she's awful. She's wondering where her kids are. They killed her 2 children, too, and she was pregnant. And they stabbed her in the chest, and I didn't know all those details because I was just a kid, and I never paid any attention to it. But later on, I found out that the chanting was when they were saying the na 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 was kill the pigs, and that's why they killed the family. Except for he survived, the dad survived, the Green Beret, and so later they pinned it on him. But I can tell you from a personal experience, having gone through that wave that kept getting stronger each time, he did not kill his family. There were people in there that did it. They have the wrong guy. But that was my most terrifying experience with the paranormal. Most of mine have been really good. Thank you.